He's young, but he's experienced, and so I don't think there were those low expectations for him. But I think Ryan did what he had to do. I think Biden did what he had to do.
Does this change the debate next week for the president?
I'm not so sure it does. I think this buys the president another week until that debate, which wasn't necessarily true before this debate started. Right. You know, air could have kept leaking out of the balloon, so I think this just gets him there. But I don't think the structure of the race has fundamentally changed. But watching social media, I'm seeing spikes now on things like rude, laugh, smirk. You want to win the debate, but you also want to win the post-debate. Over the next few days, what's the buzz going to be? And this Biden stuff, I think, is something to keep an eye on because I think it may travel. It may grow.
Maybe like Al Gore's size, you think?
Which is theater criticism substituting for substance. Yeah. After the last debate, the Republicans had a real surge in voter registration, volunteers, and donations. It was real, and it was across the country. My Republican friends all tell me that. I'm quite sure they're telling the truth. I suspect you'll see the same thing. There may be some people in like a laugh or a smirk. I've been hearing not only from donors and political consultants. I just heard from a leader of one of the unions, Real Blue Collar Union, said his guys loved it, and that he says they're going to have a big surge in the next 26 days in volunteers.
Let's take it to Wolf. Wolf.
So thank you. The first and only vice presidential debate, now history, and we're breaking it down issue by issue and moment by moment. And as always, the bigger the colored tile up there on the wall for each candidate, the more time he spoke. So first, here's how they timed out overall. Vice President Biden on the left, there in blue, speaking for 41 minutes and 32 seconds tonight. That's about 1 minute and 20 seconds longer than Congressman Ryan did. Bear in mind, last week, President Obama spoke considerably longer than Mitt Romney, but obviously didn't do him much good. Now, the top three issues of the night. Number one for Joe Biden, it's the economy at just over 6 minutes. Number one for Paul Ryan, budget and taxes at almost 7 minutes. Biden and budget and taxes are his number two issue. For Ryan, it was the economy. That's the mirror image of Biden. The vice president, as you can see by the tile, spent the third most time talking about the problems in the Arab world. For the congressman from Wisconsin, number three was entitlements such as Medicare and Social Security. That's how our team of timers actually scored it. Unlike the last debate, what was also striking tonight was how similar the two candidates were in terms of the time they devoted to key issues. That's not because they agreed. Instead, it's because for every punch, there was an equally sharp counterpunch. Some examples. On entitlements, each differed almost completely, yet the times at around 5 minutes each were nearly identical. The same on the foreign policy side. On Iran, again, disagreement, and again about equal time, 4.5 minutes each. Likewise, on ending the war in Afghanistan, both the vice president and Congressman Ryan spoke for nearly the same length of time, about 5 minutes. However, what they said could not be more different. It's all like night and day. Our correspondents are standing by in the spin room with top representatives of both campaigns. Dan Senor for the Romney campaign, Vice President Biden's son, Beau Biden. Stay with us. We have more results coming in from our poll of registered voters who watched tonight's vice presidential debate. Look at this. 55% say Joe Biden did better than expected. 26% say he did worse than expected. 18% say he did about the same as they expected. On the other side, 51% say Ryan did better than expected. 19% said he did worse. 28% say he did about the same as expected. Very, very equally divided opinions. Anderson?
You know, it's interesting. If you ask the question who won, there's one answer. If you ask who dominated the debate, I mean, I certainly thought in terms of who dominated the debate, Joe Biden dominated, whether you thought he did in a rude way or not. I mean, do you guys agree with that?
Yeah, I think Joe Biden, because he was so involved. I mean, Ryan couldn't speak without Joe Biden speaking, and he challenged him on points directly, which is what Joe Biden does. He gets in your face. That's his MO. And as Paul pointed out earlier, it was Biden being Biden. In this case, that was what the Democrats needed. They needed somebody who could explain the administration with a certain amount of passion, both on foreign policy and on domestic.
Yeah, Joe Biden is by nature a very passionate person. And he overwhelms almost everybody in conversation. Yes. I mean, he flows, and he just sort of, he's all around, and he's a little bit, he doesn't quite remind you of LBJ, but there are some of those kind of qualities
and
about it.
Ryan almost conceded the point early on when he said that's Irish, when Martha Raddatz was trying to figure out the malarkey and some of the other things, the stuff. That's Irish, because that is Irish. That's what a conversation is like around an Irish Thanksgiving dinner or in an Irish pub. But dominated, yes, I think because he got in on every point, and dominated in contrast to his boss at the last debate. Right. Joe Biden would not yield on anything. I wanted to make sure he jumped in on every point. But if you see the split and a draw on who won, what is this going to do? Liberals are energized tonight. Democrats are energized tonight. That'll help the president a little bit. Conservatives are energized tonight. So I don't think it changes the fundamental dynamic of the race. Maybe both will go up a little in the sense that you have energy and activity until Tuesday night. One other footnote. Historically, a candidate for vice president who bombs at one of these destroys their future credibility as a presidential candidate. Paul Ryan did not do that tonight. He helped himself.
Yeah, I want to go back to one more point about the dominance and the passion. What people look for in a president is not always passion. They like a calmer demeanor, a little bit more deliberative. Paul Ryan, I think, did do very well for his future tonight, but he's still not quite there as a president. He's not, he's got the makings of being presidential over time. But I do think that quieter demeanor in a debate like this has virtue, and I think that's why it came out to be more like the draw.
Can I say one thing about how this did change this trajectory of this race and the strategy for going forward in these closing weeks? What Ryan succeeded to do, both in tone and substance tonight, was to undermine the strategic imperative of the Obama campaign, which is to win by destruction. So now we have Romney's not an extremist, crazy person. Ryan's not an extremist, crazy person. And each time they do that, they prove all the $300 million worth of attack ads to be incredulous. Then they discredit their future attacks. You could see their talking point tonight was, and it was as it was after the Romney debate, he's a liar, he's a liar, he's a liar, because apparently felon and dog abuser and all of that didn't work. So now they're just going to call him a liar. But every time they prove to defy a caricature of them, it discredits future attacks.
As somebody who's been behind some of those attack ads, does it discredit those ads?
No. And we'll know in 28 days or 26 days or whatever it is, but certainly not. He did, by the way, tie his dog to the roof of the car in a dog carrier and drive him to Canada. He's not a felon. Anybody who says that is wrong. But that's not what this election's about. What this election's going to be about are the issues they talked about tonight. Medicare. Take that one. We saw how much time was spent on that. I thought what Joe Biden did was so smart. He went through all the facts and the stats and the data and the 716 and the vouchers, but then he said, who do you trust? And he sat there with the gravitas and the 69 years of living and the Democratic pedigree that he had, said, who do you really trust on this, me or this guy and his investment banker partner?
We could do a little better than that. I know you want it. No, we could do a little better. That was Ronald Reagan's coin of the realm. If I can. We could do a little better than just saying the election is going to be about Medicare. I know that's what you want it to be about. One thing we didn't see tonight at all, and that has not changed, you asked Anderson what changed tonight. One thing that didn't change is Obama's rationale for getting reelected. He didn't have any. He didn't offer anything new that would change it in the next 4 years. We're going to be looking for that the next debate. Let me continue just a moment.
Yes, sir.
That's what you guys want it to be about, but we could do a little better than just talk about, repeating the talking points.
I'm told Jessica Yellen is standing by with Vice President Biden's son, Bo. Let's check in. Jessica? Hey, Jessica, it's Anderson. You're on the air?
Oops.
And we just lost Jessica. Van Jones, you were saying?
Good. Well, I mean, first of all, I don't think that's right. I think that I heard a very compelling case made for going forward and moving forward. The other thing is...
And what was it?
But let me just say one thing. One of the things that I don't think I've heard anybody say before, because now the transcript is up, I don't think I've ever heard somebody say there's no humanitarian case to be made for the United States moving forward. I mean, in World War II, there's no humanitarian case to be made. Paul Ryan did say some things when he got
what
pushed.
He said,
well, he backtracked on that, didn't he? He said it was case by case.
Yeah, well, case by case. But he was asked pretty directly about the humanitarian case.
Using force was humanitarian enough, and he said that it has to be in the strategic interest of the United States. He didn't say humanitarian was not enough. He said it had to be in the strategic interest of the United States.
Here's the more important substantive point for
I think
tonight, Anderson, that's in the news cycle. Vice President Biden directly contradicted the testimony today and in recent days from the Department of State about what was known when and how much security was provided. And when it was asked, he's carrying this line.
I don't think that's right.
Well, you've got the transcript. Look it up.
Okay, good. But I thought what he said was directly in line. He said what we put out there was what we had when the intelligence services told us, and then they corrected it moving forward.
But the intelligence services have said that's not what they were giving them. They never said it was a video. Anybody who's had anything to do with this knew it wasn't a video.
There were also reports, I think, at least a week ago, that in the intelligence community there was a belief early on that it was a terrorist attack within the initial days. That contradicts what Joe Biden said. Whether that initial report is correct, I don't know, but it does seem to contradict. I do want to check in with Jim Acosta, I think, has somebody. Jim?
Hi, Anderson. Yes, I'm with Dan Senor, a senior advisor with the Romney campaign, and has also been spending a lot of time with Paul Ryan in debate prep in the last several weeks. Let me get first, because you're also a key foreign policy advisor to this campaign, let me get to Afghanistan first. We heard that part of the debate between Joe Biden and Paul Ryan on the issue of Afghanistan and this withdrawal date of 2014, the end of 2014. Joe Biden made it very clear this country is getting out of Afghanistan by the end of 2014. It didn't sound as if Paul Ryan was ready to go there, that he was ready to say definitively this country will be out of Afghanistan by the end of 2014. What is the answer on that?
Sure. According to President Obama's policy, not necessarily what Joe Biden said tonight, but according to President Obama's policy, we transitioned to Afghan forces 2014, and the administration maintains the flexibility to keep forces there or redeploy forces in some way, even in a non-combat role, based on threats that emerge. So there's a number of years after 2014, the administration's own policy allows for that kind of flexibility.
So you guys have the same policy?
So
is it the same policy?
Governor Romney and Congressman Ryan believe that 2014 should be the transition. They think the flexibility that the president built in was appropriate. But the goal is 2014, handing off security to the Afghan forces in 2014. On that very particular issue, there really is no difference between the president and Governor Romney.
Let me ask you about some of the stylistic points of the debate, because we heard Joe Biden interrupting Congressman Ryan on a number of occasions, calling him my friend and so forth. Did you guys prepare for that during the debate prep?
I've watched a lot of Biden debate tape over the years. I have never seen him quite perform like he did tonight. I'll leave it to others to judge the impact and the demeanor and whether it was appropriate for the office of vice president. I thought the contrast was striking on substance, where Congressman Ryan laid out a plan that he and Governor Romney want to pursue for the next 4 years. He laid out what has happened over the last 4 years. The president and now the vice president tonight couldn't articulate what happened, no real explanation for what happened over the last 4 years, no rationale for the next 4 years. And so on content, there was a real choice between Ryan and Biden. And on demeanor, again, I was struck by the contrast in demeanor, too.
All right, Dan Senor, thank you very much. Appreciate your time. And Wolf, I've been talking to several Republicans tonight and in this room, and they feel like this was essentially a draw. I haven't heard a whole lot of people say to me privately that Paul Ryan won this debate outright. But in their minds, a draw is enough to live to fight another day and not change the momentum of this race.
Yeah, I think that's becoming more and more obvious. So the Republicans were reassured by Ryan. The Democrats were reassured by Biden. John Berman's ready with another reality check, this time about Mitt Romney's tax plan. John?
All right, Wolf, they did fight a lot about the Romney tax plan. Paul Ryan claimed you could have 20% income tax rate cuts across the board, remain deficit neutral without eliminating deductions that benefit the middle class. Listen.
You can cut tax rates by 20% and still preserve these important preferences for middle class taxpayers.
Not mathematically possible.
It is mathematically possible.
So the facts, the Nonpartisan Tax Policy Center tells us that given what we know about Romney's plans, it's not possible to cut rates as much as he'd like without eliminating those deductions that would affect the middle class. They say you can't do it without changing rules on capital gains taxes, investment taxes, and dividend taxes, which the Romney campaign has said it will not do. So our verdict here is false. According to the Tax Policy Center, this cannot be done. Another subject now, the auto bailout. The vice president made the claim, as the president does from time to time, that Mitt Romney said, let Detroit go bankrupt.
We knew we had to act for the middle class. We immediately went out and rescued General Motors. We went ahead and made sure that we cut taxes for the middle class. And in addition to that, when that occurred, what did Romney do? Romney said, no, let Detroit go bankrupt.
So here are the facts. On November 18th, 2008, Mitt Romney penned an op-ed in the New York Times that the editors there titled